So we have finished many of the things in JavaScript. Now we are going to switch to the more complex part of JavaScript, that is classes, and then after that we are going to see about Ajax. Okay, and once we are done with this, we will be learning a framework which is called as Jquery. uh, your syllabus is slightly outdated because nowadays jQuery is not that much used, and in fact if you look at the latest bootstrap also, they have removed jQuery completely. Okay, so bootstrap used to use jQuery as the JavaScript library, but now they have also removed their dependence on jQuery. Okay, but still it is a good idea to learn frameworks like jQuery, because before uh, the ES5 and ES6 release of JavaScript, it was very difficult to manipulate DOM. Okay, and that is where everybody had to learn jQuery, because jQuery made DOM manipulation very easy. Okay, and adding event listeners to buttons and all these things were no bit difficult in JavaScript at that time, and it was very easy in jQuery. But now as soon as ES5 and ES6 is versions of JavaScript is released, now jQuery becomes obsolete, and many of the features that jQuery has, it is already there in newer version of JavaScript. So anyway, so today we're going to start with classes. Okay, so basically we are going to study object oriented programming in JavaScript. Okay, now this particular topic is very important because all the frameworks that you're going to study is will be completely based on OOPS. Okay, so object oriented programming only. Also if you are going to switch to Node.js, and I am sure most of you will, uh, and once you switch to Node.js, you will understand the the need of classes and objects in that case. Okay, so in JavaScript almost everything is an object. Okay, so so that's the reason why it is very important to study classes and objects. Okay, so as such in JavaScript, classes are not there. Okay, but you can create objects. I will show you my one example, and let's see if you can catch catch up with the logic. Okay, so I've started okay, better I will start a new folder. So let's start JS5. Okay, so I will open this folder completely empty. Now index.html. Okay, so I've created a script tag. So now I have to create that particular folder. So JS folder, and inside that main.js. Okay, so this is going to be a simple program. Okay, so let's see if it works. So always this should be a practice from your side, so whether everything is working or not. Okay, so hi, and then let's start the server and take it to the side. Okay, inspect. So okay, so you can see I have my code running. Okay, now so you can see all these errors that are coming. That is because of the extension live server extension. It is coming. Okay, this is the message that I have typed. Hi. So everything is working. That means okay. So now to skip these errors, I would prefer to open this without the live server. Let me just open the folder. Okay, now this is much better. Okay, so I will not use live server in this case. Okay, because of that, all those errors. Okay, so now it's simple. My setup is ready. Now let's start working with classes. Okay, so now how to declare a class. Okay, so it's very simple. You just start, I will first show you the ES5 way of making a class, sorry, making an object, and then we will see how to do the same thing in ES6. Okay, so ES5 way is just by declaring a function. Okay, so let's declare a function and let's call it, let's say, to do. Okay, and inside that I can now put up all the variables that I want. Okay, so the variables, I can say this dot, let's say, title. Okay, and I can say let's say equal to hello. Okay, so this is just a simple function that I've created. Okay, so I have added a variable called now instead of when you're declaring a object, you can see what I've done. Okay, so if I would have done it in a normal way, I would have done it like this. Okay, so let title is equal to, okay, so this is what I would have done in a normal way, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do this. Okay, so this particular keyword means that whenever I create a new object of that particular you can say class, okay, so that instance is reflected by this. Okay, so I have created this. Now next thing will be to now create an object of this. Okay, so this I can call it as a class. Okay, so this is now ES5 way of doing it. Okay, so let's say let to do one is equal to, okay, so I'm doing this, let to do one is equal to new to do. Okay, so when I do this, what I get is a new instance of an object. Okay, so now let me just show you how to print this. Console.log to do one. Okay, so I'm just printing what is to do one. If I save it and refresh, now I have to manually refresh it every time because I'm not running it in a live server. Okay, so you can see I get an object which is having one property which is title, and that is hello. Okay, now how to access this particular title from this to do one? So you just have to use dot operator and then the title. Okay, so now if I save it and refresh, you see you get hello. Okay, now now the advantage of this is, now this is not the actual use case of a object, okay, so of a class, sorry. So the actual use case would be, now what happens if I want to create a new to do, okay, so I will say new to do, that is to do 2, which will be again new to do. So whenever you want to create a new object, you have to use the keyword new and the name of the class, okay. So I'm doing this and I'm getting now new to do. Now let's see what is the value of both these to dos. Okay, so I am printing to do 1 and to do 2 both together. If I save it, you can see I get two to dos. One, the first to do is having title hello. The second to do is also having title hello. Okay, so this doesn't make any sense because it is like the same object, same contents you're repeating again and again. So that does not make any sense. So that is where constructors come into picture. Okay, so now let us see how we can handle constructors uh, in case of classes. Okay, so all you have to do is, when you declare the class, this particular function itself is a constructor. Okay, so you can mention whatever you want to give it to the object through this parenthesis. Okay, so I can say I want to give title. Okay, so whenever I want to create a new to do, I have to pass in title also. And once get the title, I can initialize this dot title is equal to title. Okay, so now you may be a little confused what is this, right? So this particular thing is a variable that is local to the that particular function. Okay, but what is this? This is a variable, or I can say it is a property of that particular object. Okay, so this title and this title is completely different. Okay, so this is a parameter of the function and this is the property of an object. Okay, so whenever, now how do you identify whether it's a property of an object or not? Just by looking at this. If there is something ahead of it, okay, so this dot, so if that is there, then that is a property. Okay, so now you can see, now still there is no difference, but how the difference come is, when you create a new to do, I can now pass in different things for different to dos. Okay, so let's say I can call it to do 1 for the first one and then to do 2 for the second one. Okay, so now I have two to dos, and now if I save and refresh, you will see that I have two to dos still, but both the to dos have different data. Okay, so that is the advantage of using this is how you can use to dos. Okay, now there are multiple things that the to-dos can store. Okay, it's not only variables, you can also store functions. Okay, so let me show you how you can store functions. So let's say this dot let's say add to do. Okay, so this is the function that I want to create. So I can use an anonymous function. Okay, so anonymous function will not have any name, and then inside that I can say I can give a title. Okay, or let's not give anything. Okay, so I can just say console dot log and okay, so I'm just saying that whenever this function is called, that this particular element will be run. Okay, so this is what we have. This is one way of doing it. You can also do you can also create a function directly, so that is also possible, but let me show you this way. Okay, so now I have this. Now let's suppose I want to call this function. Okay, so what I can do is I can just take an instance, maybe to do 1 or to do 2. Okay, so both of them will have this function inside it. Okay, and then I can just say add to do. Okay, and because it's a function, I will have to add parenthesis and then I can run it. Okay, so save and refresh. You can see add to do function called. Okay, so it is that simple. for creating classes inside JavaScript. Okay, so this what we have seen is the what you say ES5 way or the old way of handling the things. Okay, so now let me show you the new way. Okay, so I will comment this out and let's come down and let me show you the new way. Okay, so the new way is slightly different and it is much more, similar to other languages like whether it is C or PHP or any other language. So one thing that was missing in JavaScript was there was nothing called as a class keyword. Okay, we were creating class with the help of function only. Okay, so now after ES6 it a new keyword was introduced that was called as class. Okay, so now you can create classes with this keyword. Okay, so that it's the same class that I'm trying to create, but it is like this. Okay, so now this is not a direct function. You can see I'm not passing in the brackets. So uh, here I can again set the property. So I can say this. So I can copy this from here. Okay, and I can, if I do something like this, this is not going to work. Okay, so inside this, now this is the major difference between when you create an object with this particular syntax and with this syntax. Okay, so now how to handle this is, if you want to have a constructor, now here this function itself was the constructor, right? But here, in case you're using class, this function, this particular element cannot run directly. So what you have to do is, there is a new function that is called as constructor. Okay, so this is a again you can say a standard function inside the class. Okay, so this particular function is only valid inside the class keyword. Okay, so this, what is this, what is the use of a constructor? Now this is very important to understand. So constructor is something which is run whenever you create a object. Okay, so right now if I just put it put the code over here, the same code I'm putting over here. Okay, so this dot title is equal to title. Okay, so now obviously I don't have this title, so I have to pass that title the same way we did it before. So in the previous case, this was the constructor itself, right? So that's why we pass the title in the to do, right? But here when we use class, you have to specify the constructor separately. Okay, so now this is the way of doing it when you are using the class keyword. So next I want to add, once the constructor is done, next I want to add a new function to this. Okay, so which I can also, which I can call with the help of this particular object. Okay, so for that, now here you can see I have used the function keyword to create a new function. But here once you use the class, you just have to mention the name of the function. That's it. You don't have to worry about prepending it with the function keyword. Okay, so let's say I will just do add to do. Okay, and that's it. I will get my method ready. Okay, so I have a class. Inside that I have a property called title, and I have a method called add to do. Okay, so now my class is ready. Now let's see how I can call this, or how I can instantiate a new object. Okay, so the process is completely the same. I just have to do let to do one is equal to new to do. Okay, and new to do, along with that I am going to provide the what do you say, title. Okay, so let's say, okay, I'm just changing the text a little. So this is the way. So you can see it is exactly the same as before. Okay, so the instantiation part is the same. Okay, whether it is ES5 or ES6, but the way the object is class is declared is slightly different. Okay, so now if I save it and obviously nothing will happen because I'm not doing any console log. So let's do some console log and run the add to do function. Okay, so for that I will just take to do one dot add to do. Okay, so I'm going to run this, save it. Okay, and refresh. You can see everything still works. Okay. Okay, so this was just an example of how you can actually uh, create and use classes. Okay, now till here, any doubts? Is it clear, or are there any doubts? Clear. Okay, Zed, is Zed there? So Zed is not there, so I'm putting him in waiting room. Next, Vaibhav Palande. Umer Shah. Okay, so except I think, um, okay, I want some reply from everyone. Otherwise, I can start putting people inside waiting room because I don't think I want just people sitting over here. Okay, so all those who are putting clear, the next question will be to them. Yes, Umer, is Umer there? Okay, so Umer is not there. Is Shabina there? Yeah, tell me how to create a new object, a new class for fruits. Okay, I want to create a new fruits class using ES6. What will be the syntax? Shah Eklak. Yeah. Um, Tell me how to create a new object of fruits class. Okay, so the other student has already created a class. So now how will you create a new object of it? Yeah, right, Shabina. Okay, do you want me to take another example before I go ahead? Okay, so I will take one more example before we finish this. Okay, so take, let's call it fruits.js. Okay, so I'm creating a class called fruits.js, and let me bring it in. Okay, so now this is going to be, now I know out of the both of the methods, I like the second one more, because it looks similar to the way I do it in PHP also. Okay, so I like the second one more, so I will be using the second one. So for using the second one, all you have to do is class and name of the class that you want to give. Okay, so fruits. Okay, or I can call it fruit, and then a bracket. Okay, so curly braces. Okay, so this creates my what do you say, class declaration. Okay, now inside that I can have a constructor. Okay, now in case of other languages, you will have to come over here and specify what all properties you want to use, right? But in case of JavaScript, you don't have to worry about specifying the attributes. You can use it directly. Okay, so now inside that, uh, if you want, you can have a constructor, but it is always good to have a constructor. Okay, and the constructor can have any logic. Okay, so just to show you, I am putting a console.log. Okay, and let's call it hello and save it. Okay, so now once this is done, and if I try to refresh, what do you think, will there be any output? No, obviously no, because I'm just when you declare a class, okay, you are just telling that this is the way my class should look. Okay, now unless you create an object, till then nothing is going to happen. Okay, so let's now if I just refresh, you can see nothing happens. Now if I come over here and create a new object, now the way you create an object is, once you create a class, you can create any number of objects you want. Okay, so let's say let um, apple is equal to, okay, so let's new fruit. Okay, so I'm calling this function. So whenever I say something like this, okay, so whenever I use the new keyword and do something like this, immediately a new object will be created, and as soon as that object is created, this constructor function will be called. Okay, now this constructor function is very important because whenever you create a new object, this function will be called. Okay, 110% this will be called. So now what is the use of a constructor function? So whenever you want to put some initial values to the variables, this is where you're going to put all these things. Okay, so I am going to put up a real example with the to do that we have done before. So we are going to take that example and convert into a class. Okay, and I'm going to put that video, but now for the time being I have added apple. Okay, let me save it. Once I save it, I refresh, you can see I get hello. Okay, so if I do duplicate it and let's call it orange, and if I refresh, you can see two objects are created. So constructor is run twice. Okay, so obviously both are printing hello, it doesn't make much sense. But if you want to make this much more useful, then the constructor should receive something. Okay, so when you let's say I want, instead of doing console.log, I can say this dot name. Okay, so this like name of the fruit. Okay, so this dot name is equal to, let's say, let's call it, okay, so I can call it fruit underscore name. Okay, you can call this anything, it is not important. The reason why I have changed the name is so that you should not assume that always this property and this should be same. It is not like that, you can put it anything. And here then now what you can do is you can just pass in whatever you want. Okay, so if I want apple, I will pass apple. Then if I want orange, I will pass orange. Okay, so now if I save it and if I run it, you can see nothing actually happens. Okay, so actually you have created two new objects, but that's it, you're not doing anything else, right? So now after that you want to show the name of those fruits. Okay, so what you can do is you can create a new method inside the class. Okay, so you can create any number of methods. So let's say show name. Okay, so I'm just making a function called show name, right? And I can say console.log, and here I can call this dot name. Okay, now you can see I can call this not name in any of the functions that are declared. Okay, because this dot name is a property of fruit. Okay, so that will be accessible by everyone, every function inside this. Okay, every method inside this is will have all access to the this. Okay, so whatever you access, you can call it with the help of this. Okay, so now once that is done, if I save it and if I try to refresh, still nothing will happen. Okay, because you have just created a method but you have not called it. Okay, so the next step will be to call the, so I can say apple dot show name. Okay, so I will call this, so that will show apple. Okay, so if I refresh, you can see it shows apple. But if I duplicate it and I call it orange dot show name and refresh, you can see I get apple and I get orange. Okay, so now this is you know the way you use methods inside your classes. Okay, now it is possible to create multiple methods. Okay, let me call it show common. Okay, I'm creating another message show common, and I'm going to copy this, paste it over here, and inside this I'm just going to write is a fruit. Okay, so what I want is whenever I call show name, after that it should always run show common. Okay, so this is what I want. Okay, so now how that can be done? So now obviously you can do apple dot show name, and after that you can do apple dot show common. Okay, so obviously this is possible. If I save it and refresh, you can see apple is a fruit. Okay, but there is a better way, because after every show name I want to call show common. Okay, so there is a shortcut to this. What you can do is, if you want to call a function within inside sorry, one method inside another method, then again you can use simply this dot show common. Okay, so basically what you're trying to do is, inside show name you're trying to call show common. Okay, so whenever show name runs, it will call it will run show common also. Okay, so let me save it and let me run this. So you can see apple is a fruit, orange is a fruit. Okay, so you can see how you can use various, all these things, classes, uh, and also I will be putting now, if this part is clear, I would be putting up a video on how to convert our to-dos application to something like this. Okay, so use classes to handle this. Okay, any doubts? Is it clear? Okay, no. So if I do this, so according to Rehan, what will happen if I just put show common? Okay, so if I do this, save it and refresh, you can see it give you an error, because this particular show common is not defined in that context, but it is defined in the objects context. Okay, so you cannot directly call it, but you can call it via the this operator, because that particular method is defined under fruit. Okay, so whenever you define something like this, it is not like normal functions. Okay, so where you can declare a function anywhere and call it anywhere. Okay, so once this is done, now uh, the last part of this is subclasses. Okay, now it is possible to create subclasses. Now what is subclasses? Okay, so basically, let's say for example you create a class for cars. Okay, so you create a class for cars, then inside that class there can be subclasses, like there is a different subclass for BMW, then there is a different subclass for Maruti Suzuki, like that. Okay, but all these subclasses belongs to the same main class. Okay, so the super class is going to be the same, right? So that is what you mean by subclasses. Okay, so whenever you create classes and then subclasses in it, you can divide your complete product or project into, in most of the cases you can convert it into a main class, and then you can create small subclasses. Okay, so now how to create a subclass? You just have to create, let's say in our case we are using fruit. Okay, and you can create a subclass for uh, different types of fruits. Okay, so you can have a separate subclass for apple, for example. Okay, so I can call class apple. Okay, now this class, so I can do it like this, but then it has nothing to do with the fruit class. Okay, now you will agree that apple is also fruit, right? So it should be having the properties of a fruit, right? Now to extend, you have to just use extends. Okay, so you just have to put extends and the name of the class to which it extends. Okay, so fruit. Okay, That's it. And here I can just say again, all the remaining things are going to be same constructor. Okay. And you can, let's say, you can call color. Okay. Color of apple. Okay. Maybe you can call anything. I'm just taking some random examples. Okay. And I can say this dot color is equal to color. Okay. So I'm just adding this, right? And I can save it now. Okay. So now let's create an object for apple. Okay. So let's do, let f1 fruit1 is equal to new apple. Okay. So I'm just creating, and the color of the apple is, for example, red. Okay. So now if I save it, and let's do a console.log f1. Okay, so I'm just finding out what is the f1. If I refresh, okay, so you can see what is exactly happening. So I am creating a new object, but what I missed out over here is whenever a particular class extends a superclass or the parent class, you should always call its constructor also. Okay, so you can see the fruit also has a constructor. Okay, so right now when I'm in creating a new object, it is calling this constructor. Okay, but it is not able to call the constructor of the fruit. Okay, so for that there is a very simple function called super. Okay, so super is nothing but basically you're just calling the this constructor over here. Okay, so it's just calling that. And if you look at into the constructor, it requires a name. Okay, and you know the name already, so it is apple. Okay, and now if I save it and let's say refresh, you can see I get a new object which is of type apple and not fruit. Okay, and if I open it, you will see it has two properties. Okay, and if you look at the constructor of apple, there is only one property that I've added, color. Okay, so color is red, but the name property, it is coming from the main class. Okay, that is the parent class from here. Okay, so you can see now in this particular case, can I print the name of the fruit? Okay, so if I do f1 dot show name, will it work? Will f1 dot show name work? Yes, it will work because it is extending the fruit. Okay, so whenever a particular class, sorry, subclass extends a parent class, all the functions and the properties will be extended. Okay, so it will all be there inside the subclass also. Okay, so that means this should work. Okay, so if I refresh, you can see apple is a fruit. Okay, so that means show name ran, and because inside show name show common was also there, that is also running. Okay. Okay, any doubts still here? What is class and what is subclass? Now the feature of subclass, personally I have not used it in many of the places because I have done many codes, but I have never came across this particular feature, usage of this particular feature. Okay, but class is very very important. Okay, so you have to understand class, because in majority, even if you are thinking of learning React or some other frameworks, then this is going to be very helpful and required thing to understand those frameworks. Okay, because they are heavily using this particular concept of classes. Okay, so I think this part is clear. Okay, that is a very good question. Let me actually show you. because only then you will understand it better. Okay, so let me run this particular code, and you must have already seen this before. We have done this in the class only. It is our to do application. Okay, so this is our to do application, if you remember. So this is so what I have done is I have converted this to do that we have done at that time now to a class. Okay, and I will show you how it saves us a lot of time. And in fact, I am just going to make a complete video on this. Okay, but just to show you what exactly is happening. So all the to do related tasks. Okay, so from the saving of the to dos, so I have what I have done is I have created a class called to do, and inside that now I'm saving all my to dos. Okay, so in a property I'm saving all the to dos, and the rendering, the adding the to do, deleting the to do, marking it complete. So for everything I have made a function, or I can say a method. Okay, so now instead of manipulating the DOM directly, I'm doing it with the help of this. Okay, so now what is the advantage of doing this? Okay, so now I have converted, everything is working perfectly. So now it is the same program that we did, but using class. Okay, so now you may think, why to do so much of extra steps, right? So it was working previously also. Okay, so now you will see what is the difference. Okay, so now once this is done, now I can go over here. Okay, you can see I have created another class called to do's local storage. It also has all the same functions. Okay, but the implementation is different. Okay, so now the implementation is that it is storing everything in the local storage and then retrieving it from there. Okay, so our main code, that is this code, it is just calling that class whichever we tell it to call. Okay, so it doesn't know how it is handling the data. Okay, so right now the to-dos file, it is storing it in array. So if I refresh, you can see if I add something and if I refresh, everything goes right. It is not persistent. But if I replace this with to-dos local storage, okay, so and if I save it, and now you can see it is getting everything from my local storage. I think I have covered local storage. Now if I add something and if I refresh, you can see it still remains there. Okay, let's say I remove all the ticks, and if I refresh, and if I open this tomorrow also, or after 3-4 days also, still everything will be as it is. Okay, so this thing is very important when you are working with an app where things has to be stored. Okay, so now local storage is stored in your local application or browser only. Okay, so if you go open your console, open the application tab, go to local storage, and here you can see the to do's. So all the to do's are stored over here. Okay, in the local storage, right? So this is I could easily switch this, thanks, because inside the code I did not change anything. Okay, so what I have done is I have just changed the way it is, what happens when you call those functions. Okay, so that is this. And I have the third implementation that I've done is Firebase. I don't know how many of you have heard about Firebase. And Firebase, the problem with local storage is, if I add some to-dos over here and go to some other computer, then these to-dos will not be there. Okay, so there the to-dos will be different. Okay, so that means the to-dos are stored in the browser. So if the browser changes, then also the to-dos change. Okay, but I don't want that. So wherever in this world I go, I should have the same to-dos. Okay, so I can see if I just click this open. Okay, and if I go to Mozilla, okay, I can open Firefox here, and let's bring it to the side. Okay, and copy the same URL over here also. You can see you get the same result. Okay, so isn't this amazing what you can do with this Firebase? Okay, so let me show you one more thing. I have added a dynamic update. Okay, so this is happening, let's say, in your friend's computer. The right side and left side is your computer. So if you add something over here, it immediately gets added in both the places. Okay, so this is happening all in real time. Okay, thanks to Firebase. Firebase is basically web database for that is given to you for free by Google. Okay, so I am creating a video on this also, so that you can learn about Firebase also. Okay, so you can see now here. You may ask, sir, that is the feature of Firebase. What is the use of classes then? Okay, so all this was possible because I have abstracted everything inside a class. Okay, so now uh, the main.js is where everything is getting called. Okay, so if you can see, I have created an object to do, and then I am calling that render to do function, add to do function. Okay, but how it is adding, that is the lookout of that particular class. Okay, so if you are adding todos.js, then it is using arrays. Okay, if you are using todos local storage.js, then it is using local storage. Okay, if you're using Firebase, so you can understand how your code need not worry about how the things are happening in the backend. Okay, not in the backend, in the function, how it is happening, you don't have to worry. So this is the actual way of coding that you should do, so that your actual code should never know what is happening inside. Okay, so like for example, the main.js, it had to add a new event, or a new to do. So it is just calling this function, add to do. It doesn't care how it is adding to do or how it is going to render. It doesn't care. It is just calling this add to do function. Okay, but now here if you see, this add to do is simply pushing the value inside the to do's array, whereas this add to do, if you look at this, it is pushing but also storing it. Okay, and the last add to do, here you can see again it is pushing and also saving to the server. Okay, so now these things are very important when you want to abstract your code further. Okay, now it may be slightly confusing right now, but once I actually show you the video of how I did this, then you will understand it much better. Okay, okay, any other queries? Is everything clear? Okay, so before I finish, I would like to show you. Yes, it is completely different. It is a no SQL database. Okay, and it's a real-time database. Now, what is the difference between a traditional database and a real-time database? So, traditional databases, you will do a query and you will put the data on the server, but the other applications will never know that the data has changed. Okay, you have to continuously make a query and find out is there any data changes. Okay, so that is very, you can say, network, it consumes a lot of bandwidth. But in case of Firebase, when it's a real-time database. Real-time database means if you change your database, or if any other application changes your database, then it informs all the other applications at the same time, so that they can also update. Okay, so you have seen right now on the left there was a different browser, on the right there was a different browser. When I change something on the right, it immediately reflected on the left. Okay, just imagine you want to create a WhatsApp like application, or you want to create a chat application, or you want to create, or in fact I can show you one thing that I have created. So I have created this poll. So you can see I can add some questions over here, and I can save. And if I open the responses, so you can see this is right now completely real time. Okay, so if I copy this and let's open a new incognito tab, paste it. Okay, so this is the link of voting, and let me show you what happens when I submit. So this I can actually take a live poll, uh, you know for I've actually created for live polling only. So if I select any one of them and if I submit, you can see immediately, it's such a real-time application. You can immediately see the response coming up over here. Okay, so if you just want to try it out, I will just put the link in the chat box. You can try to press any of the buttons and you can see live what is exactly happening. If anybody can click on the options, so you can see it is updating live. Okay, so yeah, so this actually I have not created it using Firebase. This I have created using Socket.io and Node.js. Okay, but Firebase can be used for the same purpose again. Okay, so I will create a tutorial on Firebase so that you can understand it better. It's a very nice. Now the another very important advantage of Firebase is, there is very few databases that does not require a server side scripting. Okay, Firebase can be run on a JavaScript application also. Okay, like in our to-dos case, it is a JavaScript application. There also Firebase database works. Okay, normally if you go for MySQL or something else, it doesn't work with JavaScript directly. You need to have a PHP backend or Python backend, and then you can change the database data. Okay, so for that it is very good. Nowadays, Alia, if most of the companies, if they have any real-time application, then they are switching to Firebase, or there are services from Amazon, AWS also. They are switching to that. But traditionally, still, people are using MySQL. Okay, because of the transactions that is it provides for cartings and all these things. They still use MySQL and other databases, SQL databases. Google Docs, I think uses Node. That is what I think, but I'm not sure, Josefa. Okay, fine then. If there are any further queries, you can ask me on Tuesday. Okay, or you can put it in the Slack channel. Okay, see you then next week. uh, I hope there are no queries. Okay, thank you everyone.